An ethical culture minister in 1969. Our son Jess, who's also here, attended ethical culture schools. And I've made a number of presentations to ethical culture audiences over the years. But the primary reason I'm pleased to be here is because of the connection to the work that I'm currently engaged with. It's a project called the Police Reform Organizing Project, and it's situated at the Urban Justice Center in New York City. And the reason that I'm pleased to be here is because we see this issue as a central moral issue of our time, and we know that, as Dr. Harrison Morris put it in the film, that the primary motivation of the Ethical Culture Society is based on moral concerns. It's putting ethics into action. And we very much see the driving force behind our work is putting ethics into action and creating a fair and just criminal justice system. In the article in the New Yorker that Sophia just referred to, The Caging of America, Adam Kopkind, who wrote the article, says that the scope and brutality of our prisons are America's moral scandal. We would add to that. We would say the harshness and the sweep and the racial bias of our policing practices are the moral shame and political folly of our time. A shame because they are profoundly unjust and inhumane, and folly because they are wasteful and ineffective. As Sophia said, we only have a brief allotment of time, so I will be as brief as possible. Every day in New York City, the New York Police Department engages in objectionable practices, stopping and frisking low-income young men of color without any apparent reason, inappropriately touching and harassing LGBT people as they gather on a corner in their neighborhood or enter a community center, forcing sex workers to provide sex in return for release or supply of drugs, arresting, sometimes brutalizing homeless people, destroying their meager possessions because they were begging on a subway or sleeping on a park bench. Harassing, arresting, giving out fines to street vendors for violating randomly enforced minor rules. These are practices that go on every day in New York City. And one of the difficult realities of these practices is that they contribute to a stark racial and class divide in our city. Because most white people don't experience these practices, most well-to-do people in New York City don't experience these practices. These practices are inflicted on marginalized populations with little political power in our city. So one of the jobs of PROP is to engage in public education about these practices and their harmful effects so that we can mobilize a citywide movement to establish sweeping reforms of the NYPD. So we do public forums. I'm going to leave flyers here for a public forum we're having on February 16th. We are engaged in a very aggressive petition drive. We almost have 3,000 signatures on a petition signed by New York City residents calling for sweeping changes, calling for the creation of an outside independent agency that monitors police practices, calling for the curtailment or the complete halting of objectionable police practices like stop and frisk and like its quota policy. We encourage you to go to our website. It's the policereformorganizingproject.org to gather more information about the work that we do and upcoming events. I want to close with two pieces of information. One is a quote by a police officer who was one of the few police officers willing to come forward and object to the practices that he was being forced to carry out as a police officer. This is his quote: "We are stopping kids walking from school. We're stopping kids walking upstairs to their house. We're stopping kids going to the store, kids, young adults, in order to keep that quota." That's a reference to the quota that is applied, and it's a quota that comes out of the central headquarters of the police department with directives to every precinct in the city about the number of arrests and the number of summonses that cops have to give out over a certain period of time. We are engaged in addressing these practices, correcting these practices, exposing these practices, because our ultimate goal is to create a more livable and inclusive city for all people who live in New York City. Thank you very much.
Allow me in this brief time just to say thank you for the kind invitation, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you and to worship during this time and this day and age. It is a joy to be here with you today and to be able to have this brief conversation. Hopefully during the coffee hour we'll have time for some question and answers and to get to network and to fellowship and to know each other. Someone had asked just on Friday during the beginning part of my tenure review if I should be granted tenure. I will be the second person that looks like me. The 226-year history of the New Brunswick Theological Seminary, which is the oldest Protestant seminary in America. And someone said after reading my CV, how do you do all the things that you do and you're still standing? And I said, well, it's quite simple. I've been blessed to be married to a wonderful wife who's also an MD, and she's here today. That being said, just very quickly, some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years as part of this organization. We have won over $1 billion in federal lawsuits and settlements to clean up toxic waste in Jersey City and Hudson County. We have won the largest lawsuit in America to date. It was Honeywell International versus the Interfaith Community Organization, a group of interfaith pastors who said that we have to do more than just do hospital visits, but to find out why such a large number of persons, unrelated to each other, going to the hospital for cancer-related illnesses and deaths. And so we're very proud that we're 4 for 4 in going against the Goliaths, if you will. We come to this moment also to say thank you for the work that we are doing with the City of New York as partners. For I am also Vice President of the Disaster Chaplaincy Services, which is in fact part of the New York City Disaster Plan as the spiritual caregivers. We're interfaith, we're cross-cultural, we're multicultural, and we do all that we can that in the midst of a crisis, people are experiencing disaster, that we can be there. Not to convince you to be part of any congregation, but simply, as it's already been stated so eloquently, that there's someone there to care during this particular time of crisis. We also have been involved, and more recently, as I said earlier, in teaching practical theology. That suggests that someone said is impractical theology. That's another conversation. But in teaching practical theology, it basically focuses on two things: doing justice and creating holistic healing. And in so doing that, we've been able to teach a number of courses, but this semester in particular, I'm teaching a course on community organizing. And much of what we do it because we're community activists and community organizers. And of course, in marriage and family therapy, and in one in theological reflection, which is more than just floating up ideas, but asking the question once again, how do you do ministry in the community, go beyond the words and the creed, so how do you actually put feet to it and make it happen? I just wanted to share in closing that I've been busy trying to write to make sure that tenure goes well, and so it's been lifted up that my first book was Disaster Spiritual Care, which was co-edited by my good friend Rabbi Stephen Roberts, and we had an agreement that he and I would both write 2 separate books, or at least edit 2 separate books, then come back together and do another one. So he got his out first, and it's Professional, Spiritual, and Pastoral Care, in which I am a contributor in one of the chapters on interventions and counseling. And I'm working on mine, which hopefully will be out in September, if not sooner. It's 32 chapters, 500 pages, and it is entitled Learning to Lead. How do we teach people of faith how to be leaders to address social justice issues? And then finally, I was blessed during this 9/11 10th anniversary that someone thought enough of the work that I've done that they included me in their book Life is Too Short, 9/11, talking about the reflections. So we can chat some more about it. I'm a Baptist preacher. If you give me another second, I'll just keep going on and on. So I'm going to stop. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Besides my volunteer work as Vice Chairperson of the Social Service Board, I'm also Director of Grants at the Puerto Rican Family Institute. I would first like to express the gratitude of the Puerto Rican Family Institute for allowing us to send some of our kids to a summer camp, a horse camp, for 1 week. This past year was particularly hard for the Puerto Rican Family Institute because of all the budget cuts which are coming down from the state, from the city, from the federal government, and affecting most of our nonprofits throughout the city. We had to cut back the number of kids from a few years ago when we were able to send 32 kids to Maine. And this past year, that number was reduced to 10 kids. It would have been 8 kids without the support of the Social Service Board. 1 week in the summer, away from the hood and the heat of the city, to a week of fresh air and fun. Additionally, we are able to fund a soccer program for kids to play year-round, either at parks, city parks, or indoors in gymnasiums. But more importantly, we are able to keep kids off the streets and learn about sportsmanship and healthy value formation at an early age under the guidance of Mr. Henry Bunch, who is not here today. I'm sure he's probably coaching a game out in Flushing Park or what have you. He's president of La Liga, where we sponsor our team, and which currently has 500 youth and growing. This past month, we were able to coordinate the New Year's Eve party, which you saw in the video at the end. It would not have been possible without your help and support. Thank you. Finally, I encourage you to attend the networking after this presentation to see the wonderful photos by Women's Shelter participants funded by the Social Service Board. Thank you very much.
My name is Maria Friedman, and I'm a long-time member of the Society and the Social Service Board. I coordinate the shelter, and the shelter started in 1982 when the city asked religious institutions to open shelters, small shelters for individuals without homes could feel more comfortable and safe. We have been open since then, all year round, including summers, of course. And we are, very proud of our contribution. We house up to 8 women, and we are open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, Sundays with Columbia University students. We are always in need of volunteers. A volunteer stays overnight and offers a friendly hand to people who are in need, to friendly people around them. And if any of you or a friend is interested in helping us, please call the Society extension 113. And we will be glad to review, the conditions of volunteering, and maybe you'll be interested. In addition, the Society, the Social Service Board of the Society offer 2 evenings a year for homeless artists that are actually currently homeless or formerly homeless. It's very interesting. They offer poetry, singing, playing the piano, paintings, drawings, and they're really very, very talented and very happy to, be able to perform. So in closing, the society, the Social Service Board are very proud of our contribution, however small, to improve lives in the city. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Norlander. I've been a member of NYSEC for 6 years and a member of the Social Service Board for nearly about 5 years now. I wanted to first say that it's really been a privilege to serve on the board and witness the dedication and commitment of each and every member. The project I wanted to briefly speak on is the Women's Shelters Photo Project. Our first wave of results are on display downstairs, and I invite you to take a look at them after the meeting. For a while, I have been considering the idea to use photography as a way to raise money for the shelter. But photos, the women should be the ones to take the photos. In doing so, it would give them a creative outlet that might otherwise be missing amongst the priorities they were already dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It also gives us a chance to see their perspective on the city and on the way they capture those moments. Howard Parker generously volunteered his partnership in the project, and after I had ordered the cameras and wrote up a brief project description, Howard brought them to the shelter, explained the project, and worked with the women in capturing their thoughts on the photos they had taken. He and I then sorted through the photos and together picked the best examples for display. Hopefully you'll think they're pretty good as well. Finally, this gives us a tangible item to raise funds. We intend to offer a print of one of the photos in our growing gallery as a reward to anyone making a contribution above a certain amount, soon to be determined, to the shelter. Hopefully, this is one way we can personalize the experience of donating and remind people that those benefiting from the shelter services are very unique individuals, some with a very artistic outlook on the life they're living. Thanks.
Now we have three people at once. We have Rosemary Irving, we have Mark Zilberman, who are social workers for the EEE project, and we also have Rob Hoffman, who is geriatric training.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's very wonderful to be here and to be able to